Good afternoon, good morning, good day, everyone. My name is Erasma Beras Montecholo, pronouns she, ella. I am a senior advisor here at Promise, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this special fireside chat with my friend, colleague, and transformational leader, Dr. Nicole Cummings-Lewis. Dr. Cummings-Lewis has over 15 years of experience in early childhood education, organizational change, and nonprofit leadership. She holds degrees in early childhood education, elementary education, and a doctorate in education in learning and organizational change. She is deeply, deeply committed to systemic change, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. She serves as a senior manager of Coalition Community Voice at United Way for Greater Austin and is the founder of Beyond My Destiny Consulting. Dr. Cummings-Lewis focuses on strategic planning, community engagement, and developing restorative, equitable environments for children and families. She is a passionate advocate for early childhood education and community empowerment. Dr. Cummings-Lewis is also a distinguished scholar, and today we will delve into her study, Unlocking the Early Impact, a multiple case study on the underrepresentation of Black men as early childhood educators. And through her research, Dr. Cummings-Lewis has provided invaluable insights into the challenges as well as the triumphs of Black male educators in Central Texas, employing methodologies that include one-on-one interviews, focus groups, and mentorship questionnaires. So, Nicole, welcome to the space. I would love to invite you to spend a few minutes walking us through like your work and your research and its impact on shaping more inclusive and equitable educational landscapes.
Yeah, so this journey for me has really been it's been my life's journey. And I'll talk a little bit more about the connection as well a little bit later through some questions that Erasma will ask me and then some of the research. But really, I really wanted to edify and elevate the voices of folks in my Black community in the educational system. I did not have a positive experience as a child. And I've mentored, walked with, have a child who has not necessarily had a positive experience in the educational world. And so being in education really caused me to open my eyes to the systems that are broken and not necessarily built for children like me or people who have brains the way that I have a brain. And so a part of this research really it allowed me to really dig deep into the stories of others. I really believe in the power of stories. And so that was such a pivotal thing for me. I wanted to make sure that I was elevating the story of the people who were on the ground doing the work so that we weren't just looking at statistics. And I think so often as researchers, we're looking at the data, which is great and we need the data, but sometimes we take the humanity out of the data. And I really wanted to bring the humanity back into this work. I'm going to jump into the content. As you can see, Unlocking the Early Impact, a multiple case study on the underrepresentation of Black men as early childhood educators. The goal was to explore their career choice, retention, their sustainability, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. I had a little pushback from my advisor around the word sustainability, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. So there's only 2% of men reported in the K through 12 sector who are Black males. And there's even less reported when you look at the early childhood sector. And so that's early learning centers, home centers, things of that sort. And so there's even less reported there. And it was really important for me to hone in on that. There's been a lot of reports as of late around this 2%. And I really wanted to dig into what that really meant as a part of this research. Let me know. And so the purpose statement was the purposes of the qualitative multiple case study was to explore the Black male early childhood educators' career choice, retention, sustainability, and perceived impacts that they had on students in Central Texas. It became perceived impact because when I was doing my study, we were in the height of the COVID, of COVID, sorry, y'all. And what happened was I was denied access into schools because of COVID and them not really knowing what was happening at that time. And so my question originally was going to be also digging into the lived experience of the students at these educators were educating at the time, but because I was denied access, I did switch, and I transparently talk about that as a part of my process, into just the perceived impact, and that's through secondhand stories that these participants communicated to me. Here are the research questions. According to Black men who've remained in early education, what experiences have influenced their career choices and sustainability, along with retention? And then according to Black male educators, what influences do they experience, and how do they perceive their impact on Black students again? So here, the theoretical framework that I investigated was transformational leadership. This was a vital theory for me, because what I really wanted to know and understand was, how do we perceive these Black men in our world and in our educational system, not just as teachers, but as leaders of their students who are building leaders for tomorrow. And so the transformational leadership theory framework really worked for me. It is from Burns. It comes from, I think, 1978 is when the establishment of this framework was established, but then there were different ideations of it in 2013 and 2002 as well. But there are 4 different components to this. It's idealized influence, inspirational motivation, individualized consideration, and intellectual stimulation. And what I did was I looked at these components through the lens of Black men who see themselves as leaders, regardless of what society deems them to be, regardless of stereotypes, regardless of what the media says Black men are in our community. Through their lens, what leadership values do they hold, and what leadership elements are they transferring to their students? And so that's why this framework, I feel, fit really well with my study. And a lot of things came about through that, and we'll see a little bit more of that when I get to the implications. The methodology was qualitative. It was a multiple case study. I did several elements of data collection, as Esma talked about earlier, which was reflective journals, data entries, one-on-one interviews. I also did an educational biography to get insight into their early childhood experiences, so that I wasn't just navigating this research through what they're experiencing now, but that it would be linked to their childhood as well. And then the multiple case study, for those of you who don't know, it just means that I isolated my content and my research around understanding deeply 3 individual cases, and we'll talk more about those participants. And so here's an overview of the findings. They became ECE educators after pursuing other career paths. They participated and the participants felt undervalued, and underpaid, and that came out a bunch. Participants desired community, mentorship, relied on self-care strategies. They valued being authentic for their students. It was very important for them to be authentically themselves. They believed there was a need to lean into the power of their Black identities, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Black joy and Black embodiment that came through here. And then they leveraged different engagement strategies to pass on that elements of legacy and hope and leadership to their students. And on these next 2 pages, I'm just gonna sit in silence for just a few so that you can read a couple of quotes that came out around each one of these big key findings, which is career choice, retention, sustainability, authenticity, Black embodiment, and influence recycled.
Nicole, just one question that came in through the chat that I want to share is, were all of the cases based in Texas?
Yes, for this study, all of them were in Texas. As I said, I believe in the power of stories, and so I really wanted to pull out their perspectives on these findings. I mean, I couldn't have found them without them, so it really came through their perspectives. These quotes came directly from the participants. It was really a privilege to hear and understand their stories deeply. I did about a 2-hour interview with each of them. individually, and then I did a focus group with all three of them together. Then I did journal entries. They got 3 different journal prompts, the educational biography, and a mentorship interview. So I really got to deeply know and understand their perspectives, deeply know and understand their desires and where they were coming from. And I really hope that that came out in the bulk of the findings, and to be a voice for them to finding systems and agents of change moving forward in our early childhood educational system. So here were some of the implications, and recommendations. They are not all here. There's many of them, but these are a few that I pulled out for today. It just highlighted the need for potential transformative approach, and a greater acceptance of Black men in schools and early childhood communities through innovation. And that's the key, like through innovation. For so long, we've been doing it a specific way. Actually, in the 1800s, there were about 50% of educators were Black because of the times. And so just thinking about the decrease in that today, to encourage school administrators, educational leaders, organizations that support educators in their recruitment strategies, in their retention and development. They talked so much about once they were on a campus, not feeling like they belonged, not feeling accommodated to, feeling like they were just tossed children because of their Blackness, but not really being represented, or their voices heard on campus. For educational preparational programs to think innovatively about how they are bringing folks in. We have so many Black athletes on campuses. We have so many colleges that have folks who are willing and ready to serve our community. And I think that education gets a bad rep in our society, as just something to do when you don't have anything else to do. I don't think any of y'all in this room feel that way. But unfortunately, I know lots of people who have gone into education because they needed a backup. And I think that is, there needs to be intentionality around how we frame education in our country. And that goes into policy, that goes into initiatives that promote access for folks, to recognize that education is a pivotal point for moving our society forward. So these are just a few that I pulled out. There's so many more that are directed specifically towards each one of these groups, stakeholder groups, but these are just a few that I pulled out here. And that's really all that I have. I have a slide that I can put back up to connect. But as far as the content, that's really all that I have. I would love to just dig deeper into any questions that y'all may have, and then questions that I've asked. Thanks for listening to an overview of this.